All right, guys, did the dip in the stock market last week crash the collectible and sports car market on BAT, PCAR Market, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more? We're going to take a look at the predictions that we made on the last episode and analyze the listings to see if we can answer that question. Plus, we're going to make some new predictions on new listings that close this coming week. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Nerds! Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. All right, welcome everybody. My name is JP. We are coming to you live from Las Vegas downtown Container Park in the downtown Las Vegas area, along with my partner Michael Deeb in San Francisco, and special guest tonight, Dave Matthews. What's up, Dave? Yeah, that's you, the guy in the middle who's easy.
Oh my God, Dave
shirt,
Matthews
buddy.
is here. Holy cow! Wow.
Yeah. Welcome. Who the hell are you? You don't actually
guys.
sing, do you, Dave? No, you're not a singer?
No, you don't want to hear me. No. I'm just the rock star of technology. I do a little podcast called What's Next Wall Street, where we talk about the market. We talk about Elon. We talk about AI. We talk about Fisker Karma going bankrupt. We talk about all this stuff. So What's Next Wall Street, wherever you get your podcast, tune in, hit the subscribe button, smash the like. What do the guys say in podcast world?
All those things. That all sounds right. Yeah.
All those things.
We always forget to do that, but we need to do that more. Hey, shout out to the Nerd Herd. You guys are already hanging out in the chat here, and you guys are why we do the show. We love hanging out with you guys. All the usual suspects are clicking in right about now. We've been getting a lot of new people in the Nerd Herd lately, and shout out to those folks. If you are new, if you have never seen this channel and this is the first time, make sure you get in the chat, introduce yourself, meet some great people in the Nerd Herd. It's a lot of fun. All right, tonight's episode, really there was a big dip in the stock market at the end of the week this last week. Most of you probably already know that. So the big question is, did it crash the car market over the weekend on BAT? That's the only one of the online auction sites that goes and remains live over the weekend. And will that dip affect the auctions that are coming up this week? We made predictions on the last episode, and we're going to take a look at those and see if that can help us kind of figure out what's going on in the market. Michael Deeb, let's get right to the cars. What was the first car on the list from the last episode?
JP, as you talk about, did it affect the auctions that are happening this week? I can name about 4 or 5 auction houses that hope that it didn't coming up in 2 weeks during Monterey Car Week. Immediately, we will circle back to the car that Zach Miller picked for us on Sothebys Motorsports auction platform. This is the 2022, BMW M5 CS with just 2,000 miles. A beautiful car that Zach Miller himself was representing for a client out of Bartonville, Texas. Our car had just 2,000 miles on it. And this being the CS was really the top of the line. This car at the end of the year in 2022 was being compared in performance and significance and importance to a lot of exotic cars from that era. JP, our car had a beautiful colorway, but the market is soft and the new M5 is already on the horizon. So this would be a very interesting chance to take a look at a car that if it weren't a CS would already have dropped almost to 50% in value like a lot of luxury European sedans do. With that in mind, JP, I started the bidding at $145,005. John, it was just you and me on the show. You took the under at $144,000. But I just want to say to Dave, before we turn to him really quick and throw him into the fire, Zach Miller, who petitioned us to do this car, the guy who's representing the car was in the chats during the last show, and his bid was only $130,000, and it was his car, for Pete's sake. So, Dave, we're just going to throw you right into the fire. Low mileage CS, but the new BMW is ready to take a bow, the new M5. This car is on Sothebys Motorsports, which has only been around for like 6 months. What do you think this car would have hammered for as it closed in auction just a couple of days ago?
Look, the M5s, they have such scuttlebutt these days from the history of the valve guides going out in them. I just don't have faith in BMW as a brand anymore. I'm going to say $100,000. I think the market says no more BMW. They're too heavy. They're too janky. I drive, one of my dailies is an old X3, which I like. It's got, the N52 engine in it. But the M5s had such bad engine stuff. So what's going on?
Oh, very good. That's not a bad guess at all. He's taking the under, JP.
A pretty big margin there, yeah.
Yeah, our car hammered for $140,000 where it sold on 50 bids. So JP, you got the win. But when I tuned back into this link and looked at it, up at the top right-hand corner, it said sold for $147,000. So just before the show, I had to erase my win because I realized that the 147 included buyer's premium. None of the other sites do we ever count the buyer's premium. So JP, you actually got the win on this, but it's interesting because the hammer price and the buyer's premium straddled our two bids at 145, 144. So Zach Miller has to be pleased considering he thought it would only go for 130. It brought another 10 grand in that. The buyer actually paid 147 with the car. JP, how do you interpret that based on what you're talking about, the big dip in the stock market? Close to 150 was paid for a super low mile, hardly broken in M5. I think that's a retail number. I don't see, to me, that doesn't show any signs of fear in the market. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean this auction closed before the auction dip, but it sounds like Dave is one of us, man. Not a big fan of the newer BMWs, and if you watched last episode, you know that I basically was like, pass. I don't even want to talk about this car because I'm so bored by it. But I think there are a lot of winners when you look at the results of this particular listing. There's the big winner is obviously the seller of the car. They got premium money for the car. Zach did a great job, friend of the show. He represented a car and did well for his client. And the biggest winner of all, honestly, is Sothbys, because Sothbys it's like Sothbys who? You ask most people, nobody knows that Sothbys is even in the online auction game, even though they're the biggest name in car auctions in general, or auctions in general. So for them to get this car, kind of a not really exciting car, getting big money for it, I think that's going to help them gain traction in the auction world. So not a lot of information for us as to whether or not the stock market has anything to do with this particular listing, but interesting to see that cars are still selling, or at least they were midweek last week. Let's move on to the next car. What do we got?
Before we do, Zach Miller has texted me personally to clarify, because I got it wrong. His bid was $135,000. So he was definitely much closer to the number, basically getting it within less than like 6-7%. So well done to Zach, well done to his client, well done to Sothbys, who, Chris Carbine and Zach are really big on. Sothbys might be the new name in the game, but certainly they're the oldest house on the block, and they seem to be doing really well. So JP, moving on, we will circle right back to this
hold on a second. Before you do that,
yeah.
Now that we're still talking about Sothbys, I wanted to talk about Zach for a second. Zach, I love that he brought us this listing. We've brought a lot of people on the show who have been either selling their own car and we've talked about their listing, or they've been folks who are representing a listing. And that includes yourself. My partner, Michael Deeb, does work for Hagerty. For those of you who are new to the show, Hagerty doesn't pay us. They pay my partner, but they don't pay me nothing. So anyways, whenever we talk about a car that we're connected to and we know the reserve, Deeb, you never bid. You always say, I'm not bidding. I'm not going to, because I know what the reserve is. Right. I think it's bad juju. Every other person, you recuse because it's interesting. Zach, why did you decide to get into this conversation? And Dave, if you were representing your car, would you throw a number out there? Don't you want the possibility, the highest number possible?
Of course, I'd be throwing out the big numbers, trying to, what is it called, the auctioneer, when they amplify the room, right? You got to do that.
Yep.
You're trying to juke the system. Okay, that makes sense. All right, now we're getting a better idea what Dave's all about. All right.
Now, not that Zach Miller needs any advice from me. JP and I have been saying for 4 years, don't take our advice. If I were to bid on my own cars, I would always bid over. I mean, I bid over anyways. I'm the high bidder almost all the time. But on my own cars, I would add 30% just to lift the room, like Dave is talking about. Anyway, Zach knows what he's doing. And thank you, Zach, for bringing us that car. It was interesting to see. And, of course, Sothbys is rolling along like a choo-choo train. JP, let's jump back to that 1988 Porsche 928 S4, a 5-speed manual car and a one-owner car at that on PCAR Market. JP, this car showed just 28,000 miles and was in the stunning color of cassis red. The big news here, of course, that it's a 5-speed manual and the new style with the 32-valve motor. This car is just awesome, JP. It's got the new style, it's got the manual, it's got the big motor, and it's got a rare shade and an even rarer interior, and it's got collectible miles. The only problem is this damn thing is on PCAR Market. JP, we make fun of them all the time, and they earn it. So, John, without further ado, I thought this car was a very fair listing, and I thought it would do well. I gave a retail hammer price of $70,000, where I thought if it made it to my number, it would sell. You took the under at $65,928. Dave Matthews, what do you think of a pink 928 S4 with a manual, but it's on PCAR Market, which is oftentimes very hit and miss? What do you think this car would have hammered for just a couple of days ago?
Yeah, that cassis red, it's like you said, the lavender, purpley. I think at the South by Southwest activation 2 years ago, Daniel Arsham, the artist, had a cassis red one that he nebulized and made funky. It was pretty cool. But PCAR Market, man, those guys are tainted. I know when I've had cars up for sale, they'd ring my number all the time, trying to get me to list on that market. I'm staying clear of them because of their whole, was it the RS? The fraudulent RS that they tried to sell, or probably before the PCAR Market. But I don't know. Is this like a $50K car, the 928? Risky business I loved, but jumping into a liquid cooled front engine Porsche, they just don't have, even if it wasn't purple. 58, 65. I'm in that window.
Got to give us a number.
Okay,
Hard number.
Yeah, pick one number.
All right, 58,000.
Boom, 58. And JP, he would have won. Our car hammered for $41,928, where it failed to sell on 26 bids. What's interesting is that it's in the chum bucket for $55,000, which is right next to Dave's bid. JP, at 55 grand, I'd be interested in this car. I think that is a fair asking price for, if that mileage is correct, the 28,000 miles. I'd say there's a pretty decent value there at that number. So I like that car at 55. You could offer him 49. That would still be, $7 grand above his hammer price. And you can start the negotiations from there. I think that's very fair, which is shocking. I assumed this thing would wind up in the chum bucket for 85 to 100 grand, and it didn't. So, John, do you like this car for 55 asking as a place to begin a negotiation to procure it? And are you surprised by the hammer at all? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the hammer because PCAR Market has really been off lately. They sometimes surprise us with great results, but that's happening less and less often. When we get back to the idea of the stock market and what's going on and what's affecting the stock market, I mean, look, the Feds talked about they're not going to lower the interest rates. That might happen, and it's probably going to happen in September. But I think everyone's feeling like, well, whatever you're going to do, it's way too little and way too late. And even if they did it a little or a lot, everyone pretty much knows that none of the lending institutions are going to back that up. The Feds could conceivably drop the lending rate to a couple full percents, talking about hundreds of bips, right? But you think the banks are going to lower interest rates right now? Everyone's freaked the hell out. We've got everything from elections, assassination attempts, World War III, all this stuff. Everyone's going, what the heck is going on? I think the thing that's saving the car auctions and the collector car market is the fact that at least you put your money in crypto, or you put your money in the stock market, or you put your money in any other, kind of investment portfolio. Those things, just people have a perception that those things could evaporate overnight in ways that just who the hell knows why, right? Whereas if you buy a car, at least you could drive around in the apocalypse, right?
Take it out on the weekend. Yeah.
Until it's
crypto's crumbling away right now. Hey, by the way, I just used the interwebs to look up the risky business car. Think about 2021 when everybody was COVID crazy. They were buying cars. The car, by the way, it's a 1979 coupe, 928, of course. The movie was 1983. It just sold in 2021. Do you guys know the number? Let's do some guessing on this.
Oh, it sold when?
I don't know what.
That may as well have been a different century. I mean, 2021 and now is like, that was the craziest of crazy times. I don't know, boy. I would say 250 grand.
Over $1 million.
$1 million.
All right,
holy cow.
Yeah. Yep, good call on that, Deebs. $1.98 million.
$2 million. And, oh my God! Isn't that car coming back to auction though this summer?
I don't know, but this is the story
I think that car is earmarked for an auction this fall or this winter, and it's expected to bring over $1 million again. But I don't think it'll bring whatever the guy is into it. If he paid 1.9, I don't think he's getting his 1.9 out of it. So crazy.
I'm with you, especially during 21 when cars were just stupid money. So
or at least on the late side of 21. The early side of 21, not so much. It really wasn't until like second, third quarter where everything just went. That money hit. It was like, oh, look, all this extra money that's in the system.
Summer 2020, I picked up a Cayenne, a first-gen Cayenne S model, had the V8. But the lock system on the steering column was engaged. So it needed new relays from Tyco. I got those installed. Bought the thing for like $2,000. Sold it for $10,000 in the middle of COVID because even like a turd first gen Cayenne, which was as heavy as a Ford F-150, even those were pulling crazy money.
Yeah. Well,
during COVID, JP flipped more than a half dozen Cayennes.
I love me. I am bullish on Cayennes. We should have had one of those on the show tonight. All right, let's see if we can talk about another car that we talked about on the last episode. Let's see if, I don't know, does the stock market crashing, do you think it affected this listing? When did this next listing close, Michael Deeb?
On August 2nd, 2 days ago.
2 days ago. Okay,
Friday.
So that was Friday. So that was, Friday. And that's the thing. It's like we keep talking about things like, listing without a reserve. A lot of classically, we see no reserve cars doing very well. But boy, you happen to be holding the bag on the day that there's a stock market crash or somebody takes a crack at a president or something like that. Do you really want your car closing on a big news cycle day? What happened with this next car? Let's see if that helps us answer the question. Did the stock market help crash, or did the stock market crash the car market? What do we got, Michael D?
All right, JP, let's check in on the 1987 Ferrari Testarossa Straman convertible. Owned by the seller for 26 years, our car is showing 13,000 miles. Now, it is worth noting, JP, this car closed on Bring a Trailer in September of 2023, where it closed for $321,260. But the same seller is selling it again, so I'm guessing he did not get paid for the car, and thus the car with the same mileage, the same owner, and the same assets has come back to Bring a Trailer almost a year later. So JP, I thought our car would hammer at $250,000. You took a very low under at just $195,000. Dave, the car hammered for $321 last year, but it's back to market, which tells me that this guy did not get paid for it. The market is completely different this summer than last. What do you think this car would have hammered for?
All right, so look at this. The classic lines. This was when Crockett and Tubbs were on fire. Deebs, you and I hung out at Radwood a couple weeks ago in San Francisco, and we saw the guys walking around with the linen suits. This is peak 80s. And then, I don't know, Straman, are they a convertible? Are they like ASC?
Yeah.
Are they a convertible shop?
They were the ones that were doing the Testarossas in period. They were all over DuPont Registry and the Robb Report. Out of LA.
And then the headlights, I see dual round headlights in the front, so that's kind of cool. I think this has the numbers game is probably low on this. I'm going to say 275.
275 is not a bad guess. JP, our car hammered for $243,000, where it sold on 70 bids. I'm just going to say, Dave, if you and I had shown up to Radwood in San Francisco dressed in linen suits in this car, we had pulled in at 10 o'clock in this car, we would have signed autographs all day. JP, what do you think? 70 bids is a lot of action. 243 is the hammer. I feel like that's probably all the money for that car based on, what it did last year and what it did this year. I think this is a very authentic of account of where we are this year compared to last. How do you interpret the tea leaves when you look at that result? That seems like all the dough to me.
Our question is, did the stock market crash, or the dip in the stock market crash the car market? And I think maybe the car market crashed the stock market. Did everyone just get off NASDAQ and get off Dow, and were they just like, screw it, I'm going to go on BAT and put all my money over here? Because like Dave says, you can just drive it around. Is liquidity just moving from one vertical to another? I like, if that's what's happening, I'm with them, because I'm way rather be in a car like this, just living the life of Outrun in real life. I love it. I'm happy to see this car bring the money, and I think it's fairly safe to say that if you are liquid, if you do have money, you're probably a little worried about where the heck to put it. And, tangible assets, how wrong can you really go with that? I mean, I think, what do you think, Dave?
Oh, for sure. On my podcast, we talk about the interest rate, we talk about the meme stocks, and even when China got out of Bitcoin because the country made it illegal, the market fluctuated a bunch there, and the Bitcoins and the ETHs and all the other crap coins, they're all taking a dive now. I think the big reason, and we're going to talk about this on my podcast next Friday, is, look, Trump had it in the bag, and with Sleepy Joe at the wheel. Now with Camilla coming in hot, I think this is putting uncertainty in the market. She's coming on strong. Trump is pro-business. She's pro-environment. So I think that's creating the upset right now. And look, I've got 3 old 911s. The air-cooled, the world is great. No computers in them. If there's an EMP blast from Iran or whoever's going to war, we've got all these proxy wars going on now. It's a lot of uncertainty. And that's why I'm going to be driving my 70s and 80s 911s into the sunset.
Yeah,
Black hole sun.
Yeah, we try to avoid going too deep on politics on the show. That said, it is. I think you can kind of analyze what's going on without really making a value judgment one way or the other. The biggest, when it comes, the biggest employer in America is the federal government. They account for 30% of all employment, and they also accounts for about 30% of GDP. So if you look at what GDP, if you're trying to analyze, are we in a recession or not? We had about 2% growth this last quarter, which says, okay, that technically means we're flat, which means no recession. But then if you account for the fact that 30% of the GDP is government spending, then all of a sudden you're at like -4%. So it's like hardcore recession. So you talk about juking numbers. We were teasing Zach about giving a higher number to try to get on the show, talking about his listing. Maybe that'll drive more bids at a higher number. The government, it doesn't matter who's running it, Trump, Kamala, some other person, everybody loves spending money when it comes to the federal government. The politicians will disagree on all kinds of stuff and get us all arguing about the dumbest thing, but they will always agree on spending more of your money. So that's the thing that I think we all need to be agreeing on and being careful and just saying, all right, well, if they're going to just inflate money to oblivion, well, I guess we should buy classic cars. What do you guys think of the results of this particular Ferrari? Do you think the stock market dip is affecting the car market? We are going to get into some listings that are going to be closing this coming week, and I think that'll give us a better indication, or at least maybe we can apply what we think we've learned, if we learned anything. And like I said, never listen to our advice. We're going to try to apply what we think we've learned on some new listings, but first we're going to show a couple of quick commercials. I've got some different stuff to show you tonight. Normally we show you a Gaudin Classic commercial and our friends at Hoursmiths, but tonight we've got a new commercial for Vegas AUTOFEST, so it's actually pretty cool. You guys can win a Lotus Emira, and also
starring Rami.
Starring Rami, yeah. But before we show the premiere, this will be the premiere of the Vegas AUTOFEST commercial. I'm also going to do something that might get me in trouble. We have got, I am personally producing a film for Gaudin Classic and their their Classic Challenge, their restoration challenge that they're participating in for the coming Works reunion. So I've made the very beginning of the film, and I'm just going to, they haven't even seen it. You guys, they haven't seen it. Teaser. I might get in trouble. Teaser. This is a teaser. I'm going to tease it. My client hasn't even seen it. No one's seen this. Here it is. The bid nerds are the first ones to be able to see it. Let's see what we got. Check it out.
Porsche of Las Vegas. This is Steve.
Yeah, I have an old convertible Porsche. You guys interested?
Absolutely.
It's perfect. All original. Looks like a turbo, you know, from the factory.
Great. Bring it over.
No. You gotta come see it at my warehouse. It's been in there for a while.
What do you guys think of that? Is that exciting? I'm so excited to bring that.
It was
This
cool
film is
until
gonna
they
be just so
mispronounced
fun.
Porsche.
That's the point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's perfect. It's great. It's just like, but oh yeah, it's been sitting in my garage forever and it doesn't even run.
So Dave is the owner of an authentic factory M491 Targa, and the car that Gaudin is using was purchased
don't ruin it.
by
Don't spoil it. Don't ruin it.
We already told people.
I know, but there's new people. They don't know. And who listens to us anyway?
Well,
all right, I'm going to play another commercial here, and then we're going to come back. Hold on, guys. We'll be back in just a second here.
You could win this Lotus Emira from Vegas Auto Gallery at Vegas AutoFest. Hi, I'm Rami from The Rami Show on YouTube, and I've teamed up with Vegas Auto Gallery to give anyone who goes to Vegas Auto Fest a chance to win this car. Get your tickets at vegasautofest.com and come to Red Rock Country Club Saturday, September 21st to win.
Spectator tickets are just $20 and kids under 16 are free. So get your tickets now for a chance to win this new Lotus Emira.
From Vegas Auto Gallery, Vegas Auto Fest, the drivers are coming.
Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, we are back. Did the stock market crash the car market, or will it? We've got new listings to talk about, and we're going to see if we can analyze that question and make some predictions, and you guys can play along. This is going to be an exciting show. What's the first car on the list? See if we can answer that question. Michael Deep.
Oh, JP, this is just about my dreamiest dream car ever. What we're talking about is a 2008 Porsche 911 GT2. This is basically a 997.1 GT2. This is not an RS. Our car makes only 530 horsepower, but it's rear-wheel drive. It's got GT3 suspension. What's interesting, JP, as I look through the photos of this car, these cars only came with adaptive sports seats. The racing carbon fiber buckets that are in this car were not homologated or federalized by the DOT in 2008. So somebody added the seats afterwards. But our car looks stunning in this sort of seal gray, what do you call it? Meteor gray metallic. I should know this, same color as my damn Cayenne. 17,000 miles, and it's out of Brownsburg, Indiana, being sold by Graham Rahal Performance. Graham is the son of Bobby Rahal, and he had his own very successful career in IndyCar racing. But he and his dad are in the car business, and Graham buys really cool exotic cars, gets them all tits, and then puts them for sale. And buying a car from Graham, you're usually getting amongst the best of the best, but they usually represent the top of the market. I think this car is no exception. JP, I like this car here. I think these are fabulous driving cars. Talk about a car that could do everything. You truly could commute in this car and never realize that it's one of the fastest cars on the road. But then when you get on it, the Overton run, nothing, and I mean nothing in Rami's garage could keep up with this car. This is an absolute rocket ship. Talk about a wolf in sort of wolf drag clothes. Like, it's not in sheep's clothing, but man, this is just a really cool car, and I think it's a way higher performing car than people realize. John, it's worth noting that they only brought 194 7.1 GT2s to the United States. So by the numbers, this is a really rare car. So finding one that doesn't have accident damage, doesn't have crazy miles, isn't all modded out, I think that's a pretty rare thing. The seats are a bit of an upgrade, but honestly, I would be happier driving this car around in the standard adaptive sports seats, and you could keep the racing buckets in the garage. So John, I really like this car. I think it's a fair listing. And as I hand it over to you, juxtaposed against tonight's question, did the stock market crash the sports car market or the special car market? I think this is so rare by the numbers. I think Graham Rahal has such a good reputation. I think that it's on the right platform with decent photography. I think this car is going to bring the best retail number it can achieve in just a soft market. I don't think the dip in the market will affect this number. I expect this car to sell, and I expect to bring it an eye-watering number. Not top numbers for GT2s because I think the market is soft, but I don't think this car is going to fail to sell because of dip in the stock market. So, JP, have you ever driven a manual 7.1 GT2? I know you drove Rami's RS, but Rami's RS is this car on steroids with like another 100 horsepower. This one is so much more mild-mannered. Have you ever driven one of these?
Yeah, oddly enough, I've never driven a regular GT2 in the 997 configuration. Driven the heck out of an RS. I'm lucky enough to, but never owned one. Rami currently has a 997 convertible of all things that he's basically converted into a GT2. He put the bigger turbos and all that kind of stuff, and that thing definitely it doesn't feel quite as fast as his RS did, but I would imagine it's probably as fast as this crazy thing. Look, the 997 is just the greatest platform of all time. Every time we have a conversation with anyone about Porsches, and they're like, what's the best all-around bang for the buck best car if you had to get one kind of thing and you didn't want to spend $1 million, a 997 keeps coming up, and a 997 with a turbo with that Metzger block, this is just a great car, no way around it. And really, to keep it on topic, I'm with you, Deeb. I think that if anyone is sitting there on some cash going, all right, if there's an opportunity to buy the dip, now is probably going to be that time. These cars don't come up for auction very often at all. So if you've got the money, you may as well put it in this car. Long term or even medium term, you're going to be just fine. And inflation's probably going to go up anyway. So chances are this will be as good a hedge against anything in the market as anything else. Dave, what do you think?
All right, so my buddy's got a 996 GT2, and man, does that run well. Beautiful. I'm looking at this with the carbon ceramic brakes, but I'm going to say, still no CarPlay in this, guys. Everybody wants CarPlay. You got to get your iPhone integrated there. The 996s I know better. Those are pushing just under 200K for low miles example. This one's, you want a number here?
Not yet. We're gonna let Deep go first. What's it gonna bring, Deep?
Yeah. All right, JP. So it's interesting. GT2s can bring, in excellent condition, can bring 260 grand, but I think that those days are done for now. And I think this one's going to stay in the ballpark. Our car, JP, has 17,000 miles. It's currently at $210,000, but just on 4 bids. Graham's got good photography, and in the comments, Graham has uploaded, or whoever works for him, about 50 pages of service documents. I think this car will retail, but I don't think it's getting up to that 260 range. JP, I'm going to go 239,971. So 23,997.1 is my number. I'm going to say just under 240 grand to you, JP, and I think it sells at that number. If anybody is pragmatic and understands the market, I do think it's Graham. Unless he bought it wrong, I think this car sells. I think it's looking good. Despite just 4 bids, it's too rare a bird for somebody not to take a stab at that one, like you said, and put your money in someplace fun until this all blows over. So, JP, 239,971 to you. What's your bid?
Well, I mean, the RS versions were peaking out at somewhere around 6.5, almost 700 for a while, and then they've kind of corrected.
Still.
So, yeah. So, and I think this car should be half that. So I'm going to go ahead and say this car does break 300, but not by much. And I'm going to say 300,997. And I think the big question is whether or not it sells at that number, because I wonder what the expectations for this
way over me
is. Yeah, I'm way over, and I'm probably over most of the people in the herd too. Dave, what do you think?
Not all of them. Dave, 1 second. We got 255, 265. Guessing over 300, 285, 250, 245, 245, 245, 250, 260, 248. Those are the bids in the herd. So now you're educated, Dave. Where are you going to hit this one at Hammer?
All right, so this is one of the last normally aspirated cars, right? So we got to give some props to that.
This one is a turbo.
This is turbo.
sorry.
Yeah.
Turbo. Yeah, you're correct. But I'm sorry, OG Metzger turbo, not
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
have the particulate filters, doesn't have all the new turbo stuff, right?
Correct.
It's got Meteor Gray, which I'm saying that color is a little soft. It's everybody's going for the Viper greens and the candy colors these days. So I think that's going to hurt it. The color, I love this color too. But I'm saying that this, like, unless somebody's really, this is a conservative hot rod, right? So
Yep.
I'm saying this is going to be about 260,000 is my number for this.
Good guess. I think he's right in the money, JP.
Yeah, how
He's
did that
right
happen? How
between
did I
us,
get
really.
to be the guy that's on the top here on this one? That'll be interesting to see what the results of this particular GT2 is. What do you guys think this GT2 will bring? Will all of the craziness going on in the stock market affect the value of this car and what it will bring? Or will people just say, hey, I'm going to hedge my bets and buy myself a GT2? Let us know in the comments below. While you guys are at it, make sure you hit the thumbs up in the chat over there. There are more of you hanging out in chat than there are thumbs up. So we want to see more thumbs up so we can bring more people into the nerd herd. All right. Will the stock market crash the car market? What's the next car on the list to see if we can answer that question?
All right, JP. On the complete polarized side of the spectrum is this other sport coupe, petitioned to us or submitted to us by Dimitri Ellerington in the Nerd Herd. It is a 1999 Saab Viggen, a 9.3 Viggen, and is running no reserve on Bring a Trailer out of Kentwood, Michigan, showing 122,000 chassis miles. I think this car has had a new motor. This car has also had an accident on its Carfax report. But it's interesting, JP. The replacement engine was put in about 12,000 miles ago. It also has 17-inch BBS wheels. This was the top of the line when it came out. This was supposed to be their, sort of M or RS treatment to the 9.3. The Viggen was supposed to have a hopped up motor, a little different body work, little firmer suspension. But these cars, JP, you remember these little turbocharged cars are front wheel drive, and they had god awful torque steer. And so nobody could ever really take this car seriously as a sports car, because on your favorite back road, if you try to get to the apex and open the throttle, that steering wheel wants to straighten out and run you right into the ravine and kill you. And so I just think as a grand tourer or as a commuter that's just a little bit firmer and has a little more pep or power than your typical commute car, this is fun. But nobody in the car world ever took this car seriously as a sports car. And as such, these cars have never held their value very well. And now Saab is basically out of business in the United States. So where do you even go for parts? This car, JP, despite running no reserve and having a very attractive color and interesting, born from Jets parody, I think this car, JP, I'm gonna steal your line and beat you to the punch. This car's DOA. I don't think this car is going anywhere. It doesn't close for 2 days, but JP, I'd be shocked if this car brought 10 grand. If this car broke 10 grand at Hammer. So I know I'm alluding to the numbers so far, but I just want to make my point that this car just isn't worth any money, despite the new motor, despite the no reserve, despite the attractive colorway. It's not that rare and it's not that special. So John, the Saab 9.3 Viggen, no reserve. Any love for this car? I mean, you and I are big fans of the older cars, but these newer ones kind of lost their way with the GM influence. What do you think?
Yeah, once GM took over Saab was, you got to hand it to Saab. They tried so hard to make a cool car in spite of what General Motors inflicted on their poor company. And this car shows that they were giving it their all. But, it just wasn't there. It wasn't enough. Saab was, not only is this listing kind of DOA, but Saab was kind of DOA in call it 1993 once GM took over. It was just a matter of time till they were, a crashed jet. Look, the reason why I like that Dimitri brought this thing up because he's like, hey, let's talk about some cars that are on the spectrum where people can actually afford them. You know, a lot of times we talk about these big supercars or crazy hypercars and Ferraris and stuff like that, but this is a car that really will be affected by, because this is a car for a regular person, right? I mean, you know, if you are someone who's in the market for a GT2, like the one we were just talking about, you don't really care what happens with the economy that much, right? None of your habits are really going to change. You're not going to go from, I'm going out for filet mignon and, better start eating mac and cheese, right? This car is the kind of car for someone
start cutting their own
is,
fingernails.
Yeah, this is a car for someone who wants to have an enthusiast car, but probably doesn't have a whole lot of money yet, maybe a young person or whatever. This is a car that someone can use and have some fun with, and it can also be their actual car. The good news about a car like this, and the fact that it is mostly GM, is that as much as people say it's hard to find parts, it's much harder to find parts for the earlier generation Saabs than it is one of these, because you can go to a GM dealership and get a lot of this stuff. Not everything, but you know, the powertrain stuff isn't that hard to find. Not that I'm suggesting that you buy this car, but it really is something that if it's cheap enough, they're not too bad. They're good in all kinds of weather. They got the hatchback. They're a little quick. They're kind of fun to drive. You know, for not a lot of money. If you don't have a lot of money, why not? But the thing is, if you don't have a lot of money, you probably need something that's going to be a little bit more reliable than this, and you should probably be getting an old Camry. Dave, what do you think of the Saab Viggen?
Oh, hold on one second. Dave, you in the comments said, JP, this car is definitely on the spectrum.
Yeah, I noticed I said that right when it came out of my mouth. I'm like, someone's going to pick that up. That's what the clip guys do.
Thank you, Dave, you for saying what we were all thinking.
Like, do I go somewhere with that or just let it go? No, we are on PC on the nerds.
It's on the internet.
All right, Dave. What kind of racist thing can you say about this car?
All right, two things. You got to remember, in the 90s, the hot hatches were the great things, right? The GTI VW. My best friend from high school, he actually rebought another, a better version. His rusted out, but he went back to buy the hot hatch that he had his senior year in high school, right? So there are people that love these fighter pilot sports cars here. The Jerry Seinfeld, right? How many Saabs did he have on the show Seinfeld? So there is a market for these weird front-wheel drive hatches. I don't know if you saw the picture of the stick shift. The key for these things is in the middle of the center console. So, they just went, throw the key in, slam it in first gear, and go. You're out of there. I think that there's going to be an audience for this because it is the Viggen. Numbers were probably low to begin with, and these things were probably smashed and trashed. So I'm saying this is it's going to hit like 15 grand just because there's an audience for the guys that had these when they were kids, or maybe they had the base model 9.3 and they wanted the Viggen always.
Yeah, I mean, we Dave's are kind of in first. That. Yeah, he hopped in with a bid, but that's great. Makes it easier for us. This car is kind of winding up in that era now. It was that the 80s and 90s cars have been kind of like the top car because it's always people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that are buying the stuff that they want that they couldn't afford when they were younger, like what Dave's saying. So I think as we roll into the early aughts now with cars, those cars are now getting in their 20 years old or so.
Yep.
So I mean, guys that wanted this car in their 20s are now in their 40s and their earning years. So maybe there is a nostalgia play for that. Deeb, what do you think it's going to bring?
All right, JP. Yeah, it's really interesting when I look at the Saab, and it's crazy to me that this is a 1999. But when I see this, to me, I feel like it's still an 80s platform and 80s technology. Certainly would be welcome at Radwood. John, our car is currently sitting at $5,193. It closes in 2 days, and that $5,000 is brought to us on just 7 bids. It's a no reserve auction, and the average selling price for a Viggen is right in the neighborhood of Dave's bid at like that $14,000 to $15,000 range. But this one's got miles, an engine replacement, an accident in its history. And I just think the market is soft right now. I despite the nostalgia, I don't see this car getting the love that this guy or even Dimitri might be hoping that it does. JP, I'm going to be way more bearish on this one. My bid is going to be $9,300. And as I said earlier, I don't think this car running no reserve even has a chance to break 10 grand. So 9,300 to you. Dave's in at 15. What's your bid, JP?
Hate to say it, but I don't think this thing's going to break 7,500. I think it's just a little too beat up, and it's just not a good one. I'm not saying that these cars can't bring the money. I just don't think this one's going to bring that money. I would like to be wrong. The big question is whether or not it's because people have jitters. Folks that have $7, $8, $10, $15, $20,000, are they going out and buying the nostalgia car that they wanted, or are they holding on to their money here going into the fall that we're going into? I just don't see it happening. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. And we've got another car to see if we can answer the question: will the stock market crash the car market? What's the next one on the list?
JP, everybody loves Buddha. What's up, Mike Myers? Shout out to Buddha, who reached out to us and asked us to take a peek at this 1991 Alfa Romeo Sprint Zagato SZ. Our car is listed on Bring a Trailer and showing 13,000 kilometers, which JP is just 8,000 miles at Thousand Oaks, California, by the seller Wob. You might recognize that sexy studio and Wob's sort of, patented photography. This is a really interesting car. JP, we did cover one of these earlier this year, but not one in this condition. This car was exported to Canada from Japan, hence the kilometers on the odometer. But this one is super, super low miles. Momo steering wheel, Velia instrumentation. It's got special multi-piece wheels and a 3-liter version of the Busso V6 mated to a rear-mounted 5-speed transmission. This car has great sort of 50-50 weight distribution, but a really diminutive short wheelbase chassis with almost no overhang. So imagine a Milano Verde on steroids, and that's what this car is. Nicknamed in Italy by the European press as Il Monstro for its, at the time, ugly Zagato penmanship. But this car is, underneath the skin, is basically a race car. 210 horsepower, not a lot of weight. This is number 993 out of just 1,036 examples produced for the world. They did make another run. I think, I'm truly guessing, JP, but I think they added another 500 spiders that would be younger than this. So if this is like 89, 90, 91, I think like 93 and 94, they made a run of this exact same car in convertible form. But John, I don't think I can remember one this clean with this low miles coming to market in the United States. This car was never for sale in the US. This was a gray market car, but now you can bring this car into any state except California on the 25-year exemption. So you don't even have to go show and display. This car could just come in. You could have this car, JP, in Nevada and put a black wrap on it if you like. Look at those seats, look at the steering wheel, and think about 210 horsepower V6 that revs to about 7,000 RPM. I think 6,500 is where Redline begins. This would be a super car, fun to drive. Very take it or leave it styling. I know it's not for everybody.
Hold on. Time out. Is this front wheel drive or rear wheel drive?
Rear wheel drive.
It is rear wheel drive? Are you sure?
I promise you.
You promise? Okay, because that's one thing I didn't know. Because I was like, okay, please continue. I just like, there's a lot of information there, and I already admit I don't know dick about these. And that was a big piece of information because you were talking about torque steer on the last car. All right, what else did you want to talk about this car?
All the Alphas that came after this were front wheel drive, and that's where Alfa lost their way. And those cars, they never brought them to the United States. But this is a rear wheel drive car, and I assure you, JP, this would be a lot of fun to drive. And that's basically it in a nutshell, JP. The big news here is this is probably the nicest, lowest mile, most collectible version of this car to come to market in the U.S. These cars tend to bring more money overseas than they do here. The big question here, JP, is in a couple of days when this closes, if this car will rival the top results that we've seen at the European auctions, and will it ultimately break $100,000? That's the question this car is going to answer. And I don't know if the market is going to play a part or not. These cars are they don't appeal to everybody. It does not have broad appeal, so it's super niche. JP, Il Monstro with just 8,000 miles and some sexy photography. What do you think is going to happen?
So is that basically a like a transaxle car, kind of like a 944 with a transmission in the back? Is that what's going on?
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just don't know anything about these cars. Obviously, I'm showing my ignorance, but it is so ugly. This is like the ugliest Italian car I think I've ever seen, and yet somehow it's still cool looking. When I was in junior high, my art class buddies and I would sit around and we would draw cars, and we knew that we weren't very good at it, so we came up with a car brand called Uglo because we knew they were just ugly, and everything we drew was an Uglo car, and this basically looks like an Uglo. And everyone talks about how, I don't know, the Cybertruck is so darn ugly, but this thing really reminds everyone that minimalism is better. I had to bring the Cybertruck in there. I don't know what to make of this thing. I have no idea if someone. I'm gonna pass it off to Dave. What do you think of this crazy car?
Look at the rear end looks like a Honda CRX, spanked up at the back. The front headlights, that lower quarter view looks like a Pontiac. So they're pulling all the design cues. But remember, Zagato, there's the CRX. Look at that back end, the CRX, just like that smack booty. And this is the OG, first and second gen CRXs I'm talking about. The phone dial wheels, like reminiscent of the Porsche dials. And remember, Zagato did a lot of work with Porsches as well. So they're a design house that touched a lot of other auto manufacturers. I had an Alfa Romeo Spider and an 84 Spider Veloce. And let me tell you, keeping that thing on the road was the biggest pain because the electrical system, although it was somewhat Bosch, probably the other crap that was in there was Lucas or whoever knows what. But there's that Pontiac front end there, looking like an OG Pontiac. So this is again one of those cars that people are in love with the brand Alfa Romeo, especially the older models. The older 60s and 70s models are going for big money these days because they're easy to work on. I don't know where you're going to find a part for this one. Production numbers were like around 1,000 for this vehicle. So it's got a lot of different cues for styling in there, and you won't find one in my garage.
All right, Deeb. Is anyone, with everything that's going on in the stock market and regular markets crashing or at least dipping, is that going to affect the value of this car? How much do you think this little Alpha will bring?
All right, JP, just to repeat, one earlier this year and I think one late last year in Europe at big live auctions have sold for around $110,000 American, including buyer's premium. I don't think that one of these SZs has ever traded for $100,000, at least publicly in the U.S. This car would stand the best chance, but the market is soft and we're staring an election right in the face. And this car remains as niche and as polarizing to the eye as any car we've ever seen that's in the marketplace. JP, our car is sitting at $63,000 on 14 bids, and it closes in 2 days. I think this one stays in the park, John. I don't think it'll break $100,000. I'm going to give you $91,991 and tell you that it will sell for my number, but not break $100,000. JP, it's at 63 with 2 days to go and 14 bids on the clock already. This is the best of the best, but there's just not a love for this car. Where are you at?
What was your number? 90 what?
91,991. So basically 92,000.
Yeah, I'm going to park it right below you and just go 89,999. I think this car is just too obscure for someone to say, hey, I'm going to park my money in this car as a hedge against whatever else is going on in any other market. Something like the GT2 that we talked about earlier, or something more common or at least more sought after, like any air-cooled 911. People feel comfortable in putting money in those cars because they can look at all the data and look and just see all the different transactions and go, okay, yeah, I buy myself an 87 911. It's going to be worth X. Pretty much give or take 5-10% either direction from now until the end of time, and maybe even go up pretty regularly. This particular car, man, I mean, like I said, I had to interrupt you, and I apologize for doing that, but you had mentioned that most Alphas went to that front wheel drive platform in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. That's why I had to jump in there because I know the 164s and all those are front wheel drive. And if I, straight up, not if, when I first saw this car, I saw, okay, this is a 91, so this must be a front-wheel drive car. I would not have ever investigated any further unless I was watching Bid Nerds, and I learned that it's actually a real-wheel drive car, which makes it actually mildly interesting. But at this point, you know, I ain't buying one of these. But yeah, so my number is 89 and a bunch of nines. Dave, what do you think?
All right, so Bring a Trailer is definitely the right site for this because, look, there are so many damn armchair quarterbacks that don't even own a car anymore, but they're in there as the expert talking smack about it, you name it. I think this is hanging at 60-something thousand. This
oh wow.
It just doesn't it doesn't have the audience for it in America. And even though it is the right site for it, I just don't think it's going to push because it is an atrocity visually.
So what's your number, Dave? You said 60 something. It's at 63 now and it still has 2 days. So what's your actual number?
All right, let's say it's going to go up a little bit because of those armchair quarterbacks. I'm going to say it's 68,900.
68,900. Very good. I'll piggyback off of Dave's thing. I do think of all the online platforms, this is the right one for it. And I think Wobb's probably the best seller. I mean, those pictures are better than anything Alfa would have snapped of it when it was brand new and they were trying to make a brochure for it. But with these low miles, JP, I actually think, why didn't this guy put it in a live auction? I mean, he would have had to run it no reserve at like $100,000 value. But if this guy wants this car to break 100 grand, I think it should have gone to Monterey with like Gaudin or RM or Broad Arrow Group. I'd probably stay away from Bonhams. But yeah, I think one of those three that I mentioned, I think they could fetch over 100, maybe even close to 120 for this car with the super low miles in the U.S. And being so rare on our shores. But yeah, there you go. JP, what do you think?
A car like this probably gets a lot of attention from the sellers like this. Sellers like this do a pretty good job at promoting their listings as well. So if there is that one person out there, or really two persons out there that want to bid against one another for this car, that it could find its way up to potentially a record ending. But, you know, Dave, it's pretty uncommon for a car not to get at least 25% more on the last day. You usually see when a car gets put on BAT, gets a little flurry at the beginning, then nothing happens during the middays, and then the last day and the last hours, last minutes is really where all the action happens. But with things going on in the news, this car is closing on Tuesday. It's Sunday right now. You know, tomorrow would be another midday. You wouldn't really expect any additional bids on the car tomorrow, regardless of what's going on in the news. But let's say Tuesday, if the stock market rallies, which it could, who the heck knows? You know, it might just be because, you know, people could have just, a lot of people are saying that people were just basically getting their selling to get their gains, you know, to put those down on paper early in the, or not early in the year, but before the last quarter. So look, you could absolutely see another rally towards the end of the year, and the stock market going right back up, and people going, oh yeah, let's just keep spending money, everything's great, fine, whatever. And we could get a bunch more bids, or it could go the opposite direction, and Tuesday everything could be the sky is falling on the news and nobody bids anything. But I think it would have to be something that bad to keep this car from it not getting at least $10,000-$15,000 more than where it's at now.
But think about it. This all out. But this is the weirdest of all the Italian brands, right? Ferrari, known entity. Lamborghini, known entity. Porsche, going crazy because Porsche, you know, it's going to drive well. You can get it out there. Like people that own Ferraris and Lambos, they barely drive them. Porsches, they're out there, you know, they're spinning the tires on the weekends. This thing, it's a ugly albatross of a vehicle, and it's a smaller audience too. So when you're going into uncertainty in the market or uncertainty with the election, you name it, that uncertainty is gonna throw off these odder brands, odder like odd as F, and I think it's gonna hover down low. Look at the history of these things on BaT; they're going for 65,000 sometimes. So it's it doesn't have a good history to begin with.
I mean, this is definitely a nerd car for a bunch of nerds, man. Let me just tell you, you're gonna hop in there.
really couple of good comments. Anthony Vieira, our sugar daddy from Hoursmith, says $115,000 and hoping it gets hidden away in a collection so I don't have to see it. And then welcome to the platform. Kenneth Borgenson says $125,000. There are certain people looking for this specimen, and that's not a bad take. If you're looking for a Zagato, if you've been holding out and saying, hey, if a really nice one comes to market, I'll pay whatever it takes to have the best of the best. I mean, as long as we've been paying attention, which is 4 years and running, this is the nicest one of these rare and ugly cars that we've seen. So 125 could be in play. We shall see.
As ugly as this car looks, I would sure love to see it ripping around a back road. How awesome would it be to come around a corner and see this thing coming at you? That would just be great. I hope that's what happens with whoever winds up getting this car. All right, guys. What's that?
3.2 Carrera power with an even shorter wheelbase and about 1,000, well, at least 800 pounds less. This car could hold its own on a back road.
A lot better balance, probably, because with that transaxle on the back, you're not all that tail happiness. All right, guys.
Did you see those inboard brakes, too? I love those inboard brakes like the OG Jaguar E-types.
See, here's the thing. Dave is poo-pooing this car, calling it so ugly. He's bidding on it. He's trying to keep it low, keep expectations low. He's like, dip out, man. I'm getting this car. Look at my background. It'll match. Love it. Dave, you'd make that car look good. Dave, thanks for hanging out with us. One more time, why don't you plug your podcast? What's your channel?
Yeah, so it's called What's Next Wall Street. We are on the YouTubes at youtube.com/@WNW Show. And What's Next Wall Street Show on wherever you get your damn podcasts, whether it's the Spotify's or the Apples. And we talk about what's going on in the market, what's going on with elections and blockchain and AI and security. The world needs guidance right now, and we're here to give that to you.
Right on. Well, I'm sure you'll plug Bid Nerds on your next episode going, hey, if you want to go slumming, go hang out with the nerds. All right. And if you guys are considering selling your classic car of any kind, my partner Michael Deeb over there can help you out over there at Haggerty Marketplace. Tell them about that, Michael Deeb.
JP, we are going to announce a big auction in Chattanooga, Tennessee in October. That's going to be Broad Arrow Group's live auction in conjunction with the big auto festival they have on the river down there. It might be a good excuse, JP, for you and I to go to Tennessee. How fun would that be in October? But otherwise, if you just want to put a car in the live auction on Haggerty Marketplace, reach out to me on the socials. You can hit me direct on Instagram at the McDeeb, or just reach out to us through the Bid Nerd channels, and I'll call you back and we'll talk about your car.
Sounds great. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm going to end the show off with the Vegas AutoFest commercials. September 21st. Make your way out to Vegas. We'll see you guys there, and we'll also see you Wednesday night live. Thanks for being here with us, Dave. Bye-bye.
You could win this Lotus Emira from Vegas Auto Gallery at Vegas AutoFest. Hi, I'm Rami from The Rami Show on YouTube, and I've teamed up with Vegas Auto Gallery to give anyone who goes to Vegas Auto Fest a chance to win this car. Get your tickets at vegasautofest.com and come to Red Rock Country Club Saturday, September 21st to win.
Spectator tickets are just $20 and kids under 16 are free. So get your tickets now for a chance to win this new Lotus Emira
from Vegas Auto Gallery. Vegas Auto Fest. The drivers are coming.